Hi, I'm Victor Brick. Welcome to the Road to 100 Fit Tip number 34, 10 Tips to Get a Restful Sleep. This is part 2 in a 4-part series on how to overcome fatigue. Before I continue, let me wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope you have a healthy and happy 2009. And it's only fitting that we talk about sleep right at the start of the new year, because sleep is one of the biggest complaints. The lack of good quality sleep is one of the biggest complaints for most Americans. And there are really 4 components, as we said in Fit Tip number 33, 4 components that affect fatigue. The first is getting enough sunlight. The second is getting proper sleep. The third is getting proper diet, eating properly. And the fourth is proper exercise. Now, sleep, of course, not only affects fatigue, but it also is a cause of weight gain, and it also affects your mental acuity. You gain weight when you don't sleep well because your metabolism slows down, and it causes you to burn less calories. And of course, if you're tired, you don't think as clearly, so it affects your mental acuity. Now, here are 10 tips to help you get a better, more restful sleep. The first thing you need to do is get into a routine. And you have a biological clock, and you want as much as possible to get your biological clock on a rhythm. You want to go to bed at the same time every night. You want to get up at the same time every morning. Now, here's the key. It's more important to get up at the same time every morning than it is to go to bed at the same time every night. So even if you go to bed at different times of the night and you go to bed later some nights, try to get up at the same time every morning. Otherwise, you really throw off your biological clock, and you don't know whether you're supposed to be awake or asleep. I will say, however, that for restful sleep, 1 hour before midnight is worth 2 after. So remember that. 1 hour before midnight is worth 2 hours after. The second thing you want to do is, as much as possible, you don't want to eat sweets and carbohydrates within, you don't want to eat anything within 2 hours of going to sleep, but especially sweets and carbohydrates. For instance, I don't know whose bed this is, but they've got chocolate chip cookies and chocolate covered cherries. Chocolate covered cherries next to their bed. Now, before I continue, I wanted to mention, by the way, how do you like my outfit? Got this in Shanghai. It's supposed to be a Tai Chi outfit, but of course, in this case, I use it as my night clothes. Looks pretty neat, don't you think? Even got my name on it right there. Oh, anyway, I was digressing. Anyway, tip number 3 is that you don't want the room too quiet. Believe it or not, you don't want the room too quiet, because then any little noise will wake you. So if your room is very, very quiet, you might actually want to have a motor or a fan. You can have a small fan like this somewhere, and it doesn't even have to be blowing on you if you don't need it, but that little bit of a hum will help you get to sleep. Tip number 4 is that you want to relax and rest before you go to actually nod off. And one of the ways to do that is, of course, to read. You can meditate. If you're so inclined, you can pray. But in some way, you want to try to wind down and relax before you go to bed. Along those lines, tip number 5 is that you would want to have a notepad next to your bed so that you can write things down. I keep this little pad next to the bed, and I write things down that pop into my head in case I think of something. And that way, I don't keep them in my head when I'm trying to go to sleep. Tip number 6 is to try as much as possible to sleep in 1 and 1/2 hour segments. Your body goes through sleep cycles where it goes through the 4 phases of sleep, first 4 levels of sleep, the first being a very light sleep and then deeper and deeper sleeps until you finally get to the 4th level, which is the REM sleep, where you really have deep dreams, and then you come back out of it. And this usually takes about an hour and a half. And if you wake yourself in the middle of one of these sleep cycles, you'll feel drowsy and never feel fully awake. So as much as possible, you want to awake at the end of a sleep cycle. For most people, this is 6 hours or 7.5 hours. Now, if you take into account 10 or 15 minutes to get to sleep and 5 or 10 minutes to actually come out of the sleep cycle, you add that onto your 7.5 hours, and that is your 8 hours worth of sleep. Now, tip number 7 is to sleep in as dark a room as possible. And the way you can do that, first, you should make sure that you darken put the dimmer on your alarm clock. Believe it or not, that little bit of illumination will keep you awake or will affect your sleep. You want to have darkening shades. And you can see we still have our Christmas lights up. But darkening shades, and there's a special type of shade, and they're much heavier, and they completely block out any light. And if need be, you can even get one of these neat eye covers that, like what you would get on a first-class international flight, and this, of course, would really block out any type of light. Now, tip number 7 is to not watch any television within an hour of going to sleep. television stimulates brain activity. It is bad enough, of course, what's on most of the time, but any type of television stimulates brain activity and will help make you agitated and will help to keep you asleep. So again, no television an hour before going to sleep. Tip number 9 is to take a warm bath before you go to sleep. You wouldn't want to necessarily do this every night because hopefully you wouldn't be wound up tight and you could unwind by reading or by relaxing or meditating or even praying. But if you needed to, if you're really anxious, a warm bath will, of course, relax you and help you to unwind and get a better night's sleep. And tip number 10 is to make sure you go to the bathroom before you go to sleep. Because remember, you don't want to wake up in one of the middle of those sleep cycles or you'll never really feel fully awake. So excuse me while I take care of tip number 10. That's it for Fit Tip number 34, 10 tips to a good night's sleep. If you like this Fit Tip and you would like to forward it to a friend, you can do so by hitting the forward button at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to look up a text version of this Fit Tip or past Fit Tips, you can do so at www.brickbodies.com. Now, we always close each Fit Tip with a corny joke and with a philosophical question. Now, the corny joke for this week is, who is the greatest babysitter in the Bible? Who's the greatest babysitter in the Bible? Why, David, because he rocked Goliath to sleep. And what's the philosophical question? The philosophical question is, do you think things are getting better or do you think things are getting worse in the world? And that could be economically, it could be spiritually, it could be culturally. Do you think things are getting better or do you think things are getting worse? So once again, have a happy new year and see you at 100 years, that is.